we're on the skeletal system, and we always start with the skeletal cartilage, and then we'll move on to bones, because cartilage is part of the skeletal system, okay? It does not contain any blood vessels or nerves, okay? And it's surrounded by a fibrous, dense irregular tissue that helps it resist outward expansion. That's called the perichondrium. And remember, the word chondra means cartilage. And we have three types. We have hyaline, which we looked at in lab, elastic, and fibrocartilage, which we didn't. But a majority of our body is made up of hyaline cartilage when we have cartilage. So we'll start with hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage provides support, flexibility, and resilience. Again, it's the most abundant of our skeletal cartilages. And three areas where you can find it is the articular cartilage, so it covers the ends of what we'll find out are called long bones. Long bones are longer than they are wide. So like your tibia is a long bone, your femur, your radius, your ulna, your humerus, those are all long bones. We find it in the rib cage, so it connects the ribs to the sternum. We find it in the respiratory tract, so your trachea, so you can feel the hyaline cartilage rings that just stretch your neck up, and you can feel those rings and the space between them by doing this. Okay? So those are the hyaline cartilage rings. Your larynx, your voice box is made up mostly of hyaline cartilage. And then you find it in your nose, that's hyaline cartilage, not the nasal bone, but the part that you can sit there and go like this. You stick earrings through. I guess they're not earrings, nasal rings. What do you call those, nose rings? Mm-hmm. Looks painful to me. I'll go like this.
Is it not in your ear?
No, it's in your ear as well.
Okay.
But this part is elastic cartilage. The ears hang low. Do they wobble to and fro? So elastic is similar to hyaline, but it has more elastic fibers, and that's why the external ear is mostly elastic cartilage. So that's why you can bend it. We put all sorts of things in it. So if it's avascular, has no blood supply, why does it bleed when you get your ears pierced?
There's blood under your skin.
There you go, there's blood under the skin, right? Because this is more than just one tissue. It's just not hyaline elastic cartilage. It's got skin over it, and the skin has a dermis under it, those kind of things. And the dermis has got
But there's still like no vessels there.
there's no vessels. They get their nutrients much like the epidermis does through diffusion of nutrients. And then fibrocartilage is highly compressed. It's got a lot of great tensile strength. Contains more collagen fibers. And there's a structure in your knee that's called the menisci, which acts as a cushion. And then you have your intervertebral disc. So between each of your little vertebrae, everybody's seen a skeleton, so we've all seen vertebrae, there is a fibrocartilaginous disc. Intervertebral disc that's made up of fibrocartilage. Now, we say oppositional and interstitial. Oppositional is growth in width. which is not up here, so you might wanna write that down. Oppositional is growth in width. Interstitial is growth in length. That's basically a simple way of putting what this is saying. Okay, so this says appositional cells in the pericardium secrete matrix against the external face of the existing cartilage, so they get wider. They go like this. So that's growth in width. And here in interstitial, the chondrocytes divide and secrete new matrix, and so that expands it this way. Okay? And cartilage can ossify. It can become bone, become calcified. That's ossification. That can happen during normal bone growth, and it also happens with old age. So when we talk about the respiratory system, one of the things that decrease your ability to expand your rib cage is that hyaline cartilage that's attaching to the sternum ossifies. And that's why older people can't, like myself, can't do what I did when I was 18. So who's 90? He's not gonna run and win the Olympics. They can't expand the chest and get the oxygen that they used to be able to do. Okay, does that make sense? So you're all going downhill from here on out, so it's okay. Yes,
You said, oppositional is, length or width?
appositional is width, interstitial is length. Get that? So this is just showing you the picture of where they're at. So we see down here in red is our fibrocartilage. We see it between the vertebrae up here. Blue is the hyaline cartilage. And then green is the elastic cartilage, which is this external ear. The other place we find it is in the epiglottis as well, which is, the epiglottis is a flexible fold that bends over the larynx when you go to swallow. But we'll learn more about that with AP2. Okay, so classification of bones. We have the axial and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton is the bones of the skull, the vertebral column, and the rib cage. Appendicular are the bones of the upper and lower limbs, so the humerus, the radius, the ulna, the femur, the tibia, the fibula, the tarsals, the carpals, the phalanges, the metatarsals, metacarpals, etc. Okay, and of the shoulder and hip, the scapula, and the pelvis, the pelvic girdle. Now, we do define two things. We had the perichondrium. We also have a periosteum, which is on the outer surface, and on the inner surface, because bones are actually hollow. They have hollow spaces in them. And so we're looking at a typical long bone, which this is what this is showing here. This is a femur. This is going to be hollow. This actually gives it better strength than if it was solid all the way through. Won't bend as much. Okay, and so right here we'll see the endosteum on the inside of it. Okay, and we'll be talking about it. So periosteum is on the outside of the bone, endosteum is on the inside, and it's a connective tissue membrane. Okay, this is the classification of bones. So we have several different ones. So we have our long bones. We have the irregular bones. Here we have the short bones, which make up the carpus and the tarsus. The carpal bones are your wrist. Tarsal bones are your ankle. Okay, but we're in A&P, we're not in non-majors biology, and so which term do you think you need to know?
Carpals and tarsals.
Carpals and tarsals. That's the bad part, is it's a lot like learning the language. you've heard some of these terms, but now you have to apply them. Okay, irregulars, these are short bones, these are long bones, I think those are kind of explanatory. This irregular bone, this is not long, short, not flat, it's kind of weird, okay? And then the fourth term is flat bones. Now, some people say that are sesamoid bones, and so those would be like the kneecap, and the kneecap is called the patella, and it's considered a sesamoid bone. We also have some little bones that we call wormium bones that are between the sutures in the skull, for instance. And we'll be able to see those next week, because next week in lab we will be going through the skull and the rib cage. That'll take us the whole lab period, the 2 lab periods. The week after that, we will do the pelvis and the arms and the legs, the limbs. Okay, so if you gonna be good and study, that would be what I'd work on this weekend. Is the skull bones and the rib cage. What's a true rib? What's a false rib? What's a floating rib? What's the sections of the sternum called? So those are things that you should be working on. So long bones are longer than they are wide, so there's the humerus. So that's most of our bones of the limbs. Short bones are cube-shaped bones. And see, some people call the patella a short bone. Other people say it's a sesamoid. Okay.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Good question.
That's text.
Will you take either?
I would take either. And I would make sure, if it was a multiple choice, that it wasn't like,
Both on there.
yeah, unless it was like, you know, A and B are both correct. Does that make sense? I don't write, intentionally, I do not write tricky questions. I try to make them.
Sure.
So you said it's a short also?
Short and sesamoid.
Yeah, short or sesamoid. I try not to. I really do.
I think you're so intelligent that you just don't know, but it's kind of tricky.
It's just second nature for you.
Well, that's what I try to think back and think of it if it wasn't second nature. I really do think that way. But there are also questions that you just have to apply. And that, when you have to apply instead of memorize, y'all like, ah, that was a trick question.
So will we have no sesamoid bones, like the one in your feet?
The only thing that you'll have to learn in lab is these are carpal bones. So those in the wrist are carpal, and then in lab we'll talk about some specials like the calcaneus and the tarsus and the ankle bones, the tarsal bones.
Do we need to know the
Patella
special names
or-
for each of them, or we just need to know that there's tarsals and
Only 2 special ones in the ankles.
okay.
Flat bones are thin, flattened, and a bit curved. Most of your sternum is that, most of your skull bones are that way, obviously, because they're surrounding your brains. We know we have round skulls, okay? And then the sternum and ribs. The ribs, what are those? They're flat. Think about it. You've all ate ribs at some point in your life, haven't you? Are those bones flat? They're long, but they're not rounded. A long bone is rounded. These are flat. Irregular bones are bones with complicated shapes. So again, the vertebrae, so they show here it's very complicated. Oh yeah, and we'll do vertebrae also. I knew there was something I was busy on next week. Okay, so read about that. And then 2 weeks from now we'll be doing the hip, the pelvic bones. Okay, so we're gonna stop there. We'll pick up on functional bones Tuesday. didn't get as far as I'd like to, but I had to talk about the lab practical. And then, hopefully next week I will be walking a little bit better and not stumbling around. Yes,
Are we gonna have to know about facial bones?
yes,
Okay.
that's part of your skull. So
Do we have to know-
zygomatic, sphenoid, ethmoid, parietal, occipital, temporal, zygomatic, I don't know if I said that one. Yeah, all those bones, and they're all listed in your lab book. I will not ask you specific bones for the lecture test, because you do that in lab.
So know the objectives.
However, if I ask you, give me an example of a flat bone, you should be able to give me an example of a flat bone. So multiple choice question. Blank blank is a, which of the following is a flat bone? Which of the following is a long bone?
Some of the facial bones are regular, right?
There's a few of them, yeah.